Hello, BookTube. The other day I did a quick tour through some books that were recommended by Entertainment Weekly, the entertainment supermarket checkout magazine here in America that I subscribe to and really like. Uh, and somebody in the comments field of that video asked if I would go to Entertainment Weekly's website and check out the longer list they publish there. Couldn't for the life of me find such a list. But it got me thinking about book coverage in other magazines, and then I got one in the mail, and I wanted to go through it. It's Esquire. The the title is Man at His Best. It's sort of one of the many dude bro magazines that I subscribe to. In this case, the cover has some human head of an actor and and pure beauty. But Esquire it's a maddening combination of things. That in the back of the magazine, because they have real money to offer for freelancers, and because they have always had a discriminating literary taste, you will always in every issue of Esquire find a feature freelance piece that's truly worth reading. That's at the back of the magazine. The front of the magazine is egregious overconsumption, because the magazine is aimed squarely at early 30-somethings who have more money than God and no idea what to use it for. So you get things like this, where every single piece of thing is attached, including with damning accuracy. The line attaching to the little dog says, "I'm just an accessory to pick up chicks." And for the demographic of this magazine, that's absolutely true. That's nothing to joke about. It's these dogs' lives are wasted as pickup devices for chicks and then abandoned. But that's only the second most alarming thing in the picture, because I'm sure the dog belongs to a photographer or a photographer's assistant just hauled in for the day and is usually pampered. But this quite ordinary coat that the young tobacco addict is wearing is $4,110. So you go into a store and you pay $4,110 for a coat that's made for 75 cents by slaves in China. You pay $4,000 for it. And this is full of $5,000 suit jackets, $6,000 leather duffel bags that you can find the exact same thing online for $10. And let's not even get started on the cost of the watches. These huge, gigantic business bro hipster watches that are designed to show that I'm a real man because I'm wearing 1950s technology. Like I don't check my phone every 5 seconds. But there are books mentioned, and not just books. When you turn to at the beginning, there's a watch list. Esquire always has a watch list. And the huge chunk of it at the beginning is upcoming movies and TV that you're going to want to watch. And then there's a column for books. And I want to get to the books, but the first thing I want to point out is how much books dominate the other part, the TV and movie part. The first thing, a long 600-word, very good 600-word piece by John Kenny, is on The Looming Tower. Hulu is making a miniseries of Wright's book, The Looming Tower, about the events leading up to September 11th terrorist attacks and the attacks themselves. And it's got an all-star cast of people as all of the... What do we have here? The FBI's flawed but relentless and devoted John O'Neill, who's played by Jeff Daniels. His counterpart and antagonist at the CIA, played by Peter Sarsgaard, and the agency's director, George Tenet, played by Alec Baldwin. And all of those roles were done. The John O'Neill role in particular, incredibly touching. And his story on 9/11 is incredibly touching. And he was played by Harvey Keitel, did a great job in a great 9/11 movie that got blacklisted for petty political reasons and is never shown anymore. I've never seen it except for the one time. I don't even remember its name, but if I find it, I'll leave a link down below to at least IMDb, so that if you ever come across it, you can watch it. It's genuinely really good. But this looks really good too, and it's based on a book. And then the very next thing is Waco, Who is doing this? It's a miniseries for Viacom. It's I think 10 parts. It stars roasting tobacco addict Taylor Kitsch from Friday Night Lights as David Koresh, the messianic leader of the Branch Davidians during the Waco siege. And it doesn't say it here, but most of this miniseries is based on Waco, a survivor's story, which was one of the best-selling first-hand accounts of the Waco siege. Back we're up on an anniversary here. Okay, 1993. It doesn't say, but this is also based on a book, mostly based on a book. And then the next one is The Alienist, which is based on Caleb Carr's best-selling novel, which is his best-selling novel is really atmospheric, really textured, a very literary experience. It is a perfect example. It and its sequel, The Angel of Darkness, are perfect examples of what I complain about on this channel all the time, which is contemporary fiction that simply doesn't know how to end, doesn't have any sense of what a climax is. The Alienist flubs it completely, and when I read it, I was sure that Caleb Carr, who was still fairly young when he wrote it, would get bombarded with letters saying, well, great way to flub an ending, genius boy, and that he would fix it for The Angel of Darkness, and Angel of Darkness is the same way. and it turns out that it's got to be some sort of willful choice on his part, because his latest book, Farewell New York, is the same way. The ending is just completely botched. There's no way that by this point someone hasn't gotten inside his authorial bubble and said, look, here's what you did. You can see why that doesn't work, right? Why that's not emotionally satisfying at all, negatively or positively. It just sort of sits there. Someone has to have told him this in the last 30 years, so it's just got to be a choice on his part. But this is going to be a series, yes. Yes, on TNT it's going to be a series, and it's based on a book. Same thing with the next one, Electric Dreams, which is based on the stories of Philip K. Dick, and which has some fairly major stars. That's an Amazon series. It's only the last two that aren't based on books. One is called Mosaic, and one is called The Assassination of Gianni Versace, which looks unremarkable, except that a friend of mine who works in the industry has said that the performance as the killer, Andrew Cunanan, by Darren Criss of Glee, is truly outstanding. A friend of mine said she's seen it, and it's truly worth catching the whole thing just for that performance. I find that hard to believe, but she's almost never wrong. She's steered me in a lot of good directions. But anyway, eventually we get to the little thin column devoted specifically to books, 4 of them. And I wanted to mention them to you. The column is called Required Reading. It's by Adrienne Westenfeld, who works for Esquire and is a book geek. So you notice something we have in common with our little tour through Entertainment Weekly, which is that unlikely in little corners of these bigger media-driven $4,000 coat magazines, we've got our own people. We've got these true blue book geeks trying to do the Lord's work, trying to put out the word for worthwhile books. And the 4 that she picks, the first one is Feel Free by Zadie Smith, which we've seen on this channel. It's a collection of her essays. And her occasional pieces and her introductions and whatnot. And it's great. It reminds you all over again how much you wish she did more of that. She herself in the book over and over again in many different pieces laments that she just doesn't seem cut out for it. And I don't agree with that. That's the feeling that all freelancers have, is that I'm just not cut out for this. I've been dealing with that feeling myself for the last 10 hours. She's really good at it. The end product is what you judge by, not how many dark nights of the soul you have in the 5 hours before it's due. And Feel Free, oh, what a book. If you want to spend an hour in lively, funny, smart company on all kinds of subjects, from books to art to the real world, it's a wonderful book. And then the next one is Munich by Robert Harris. the author of Fatherland and Pompeii, his novel Pompeii that I never stop praising on this channel. He wrote a novel about the Munich Conference of 1938 when Neville Chamberlain flew to Munich to try desperately to get terms from Adolf Hitler that would forestall a world war on the European continent. And I read it when I first got it. I got the advanced copy. I think I showed it on this channel. I got the advanced copy months and months ago, and I read it, and I thought, okay, well, this just sits there. How strange that you could have the exact same kind of book for Pompeii. And Pompeii, it's the same thing as Munich. You know what's coming. You know how the story ends. And it's brought completely to life anyway by his investing it with immediacy, by creating these characters who live through it. And I thought, well, isn't it disappointing that you couldn't manage that with Munich? And then I read it again. When I got the finished copy, I read it again, and it had much improved. It's a really good book. I wasn't annoyed by it at all. In fact, I really liked a lot of it. And I reviewed it, so you'll be able to read my review of it. But I do recommend the book. The book is good. As usual, the American cover is much worse than the UK cover. So if it interests you, by all means, get the UK paperback on Book Depository. But either way, it's really good. It's much better than I originally thought it was, which is why I hate the made-up stories, because they do that. They move around in the back attic, and I don't like that. The next one is The Rub of Time by Martin Amis. Like the Zadie Smith, it's a big collection of his nonfiction, his introductions, his essays and lectures and whatnot. And unlike Zadie Smith, his greats after a while. I liked a lot of it. I remember a lot of these pieces. I remember reading them in their original locations. But the more I reread them, especially when I reread them, a lot of them at a gallop all at once, all collected in one book, the more I saw their defects. The more I saw that perhaps this is a shallow thinker trying to imitate a deep thinker. And that's a little annoying. I always found it annoying when Amis's best friend Christopher Hitchens did it, and I find it annoying when Amis does it. I much prefer that you stick to where you actually are a deep thinker, rather than thinking that if you're a deep thinker on some subjects, you can wing it on others and no one will notice. But still, The Rub of Time, not only is it smart enough and packed enough so that it's bound to have something that will interest you. So if you find it at the library, or if you're a fan of Martin Amis, get it, at a bookstore. Not only that, but also how great is it that a nonfiction essay collection by Martin Amis and a nonfiction essay collection by Zadie Smith are on a list of books in Esquire. How much do we like Adrienne Westenfeld? Then the last book is The Most Dangerous Man in America, which is a book about J. Edgar Hoover pursuing Timothy Leary, and all the 60s subculture comes in along the way. And I read the description of it in a catalog, and then I got an advance copy and I read that, and I had so much hope for it because it's such a great story. But it, for me, the author doesn't ignite the material at all. It just sits there. So it's the only disappointment for me on this list. But still, I'm glad to see it there, and especially since the whole, oh man, the man harshing on Timothy Leary's buzz, that kind of thing is what I would expect the whole of an Esquire list to be. And instead, it's the bottom thing, and it's the only exception to the excellence of all the other suggestions. So that is basically what I wanted to say, is that first of all, your coat isn't expensive enough, and also, oh my God, and third, some really good book suggestions. So I'll if I remember, I'll annotate them down below. And so we've done another magazine. Maybe this will become a habit. But in the meantime, I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.